X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zack. And I am not alone today in the studio. And by studio, I mean Zencastr browser. Not just because you're here, Adam, like
No,
always.
we have company.
We do have company. We have company coming to us from the Renegades, Talking Valiant, a podcast all about Valiant stuff. Like Exo Manowar and I don't know, Faith. I don't read a lot of Valiant. Oh shoot, no, I read Rye. Rye's freaking great. Have you read Rye, Adam?
I have not. I'm behind on my Valiant comics by about 25 years. So
Clayton Crane draws a future ninja. It's fabulous.
I'm down
But
with
we're
that.
not talking. Wait, no, future ninjas with an arc of X Factor before the one we're talking about.
No Cyber Eye.
No. Cyber-Eye. No. But instead of Cyber-Eye, we have Brett Simon. Brett, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming. Now, we're just going to jump in because, guys, behind the scenes, we spent like 15 minutes trying to figure out some technical issues that have just been ridiculous. And I have a whole gag planned in like 5 minutes that you'll understand why I'm frustrated that it's been taking so long and getting so long. But anyway, Brett, you have selected a whole episode based on a story that you pitched in the whole Patreon situation. And Brett, what's this story? What are we starting with here?
So we are starting with a story that is a little bit controversial, to say the least. A lot was said before it happened, a lot was said as it happened, and now a lot's been said after it's happened. And that story is Inhumans versus X-Men.
Ay.
So look, if we're going to talk about Inhumans versus X-Men, there's something I need to do.
All right.
You hear that? That's the sound of an adult beverage being opened.
I didn't realize we were
actually
toasting. Oh.
I don't know if toasting is the right word, but I think this is going to be a necessity to talk about Inhumans versus X-Men. This was a 6-part plus 0-issue story that came out in late 2006, early 2007. It was co-written by Charles Soule and Jeff Lemire, penciled by Leinil Francis Yu for about 3 issues, Kenneth Rocafort for the 0 issue, and Javier Garron for 3 issues in the middle.
Before we went on air, Brett, why don't we start with your take? Because you said you reread this recently and you had a kinder reflection on it. Is that your takeaway?
Yeah, actually, so I first read IVX as it was coming out. Actually, a friend lent me the issues. And when I first read it, I was not over fond of it. But when I reread it, I actually found some things that I liked about it that I didn't really remember. And I still don't think it's my favorite X-Men story, but there are some things about it that I like more than I remembered.
So for the people who wouldn't know about IVX, I just want to jump in here. This was the capstone of about a year and a half of X-Men stories coming out of Secret Wars. This is after Secret Wars, the Inhumans Terrigen Mist cloud saturated the atmosphere. It got mutated and it caused a virus in mutants called Mpox, and it was killing off mutants, causing a lot of anti-mutant sentiment, and making life for the X-Men just hell. Like, they had to move to literal hell to survive, to get away with it. So it caused a lot of issues. Cyclops died from it, which, Cyclops fans are not thrilled about that. And it just, also Jamie Madrox fans, sorry guys, yeah. But he was on a farm anyway. He's effectively nothing changed about his status quo. But uh, because of that, the Inhumans and the X-Men eventually go to war. And this is the story of that war and what happens. The whole thing kind of gets more instigated by Emma Frost, and there's some very interesting story decisions that we are not going to leave undiscussed. But Brett, please, at this juncture, tell us what you liked about this rereading it a second time.
Great question. So I think first and foremost, I got to say the art was great. I mean, even the first time I read it, I was a fan of the art, so that didn't change. But what I think I really liked about IVX this time when I read it was the setup was really well done. The first like 2.5 issues, I felt like set the stage very, very well. Kind of laid out the situation. Like you were saying, Zach, like, hey, these are the X-Men, these are the Inhumans. The Inhumans are excited because the Terrigen is creating new Inhumans. The X-Men are frightened because the Terrigen is killing them. They want to try to reach some sort of a solution, and then there's a ticking clock because Beast realizes that, they only have so much time before the Terrigen cloud basically explodes, and then there's nowhere they can hide from it. So I felt like that setup was really awesome and kind of put the X-Men in this position where they had to make a lot of choices very quickly. And I also felt like as I was reading Inhumans versus X-Men, despite having a ridiculously huge cast, that it still balanced the cast pretty well. I'm a big Magneto fan. Magneto got some cool moments. Emma Frost got some cool moments. Storm did some stuff. So overall, that was something else I liked. And I thought those were kind of some of the positives. Also, some of the dialogue was pretty good. So I'll throw that out there too.
I think you bring up the 2 points that I liked the most about this story. Number one is, absolutely the art. Kenneth Rocafort on Zero, and especially Lenio Francis Yu when he steps up to the plate, it's gorgeous. And I will tell you what, the colors on this, and I am a bad person and don't have the colorist up at this exact moment.
It's David Curiel.
David Curiel, that's exactly right. Yeah, yep. Curiel's colors, fantastic. And Javier Garrón, who's an artist I really like. Obviously, he's a little rushed in these issues. It feels like he is doing some fill-in stuff. I think it's great.
I just want to add another little wrinkle to this story because I feel like coming out of Secret Wars, this particular Terrigen angle had been lingering around in the Marvel Universe even before Secret Wars, because this was a concept that actually started back in the Infinity crossover and sort of got elevated in the post-Secret Wars. But I think we would be remiss, and we can get into more specifics, right? Because I don't want to belabor this too much. But this particular crossover and Death of X before it really did seem like, from an editorial perspective, like there were trolling X fans a little bit. There was this whole idea about the movie rights to the X franchise, to X movies coming out, that perhaps the Marvel Universe was, or the Marvel as a company was less interested in publishing the X-Men in general. And that somehow they were going to like replace the X-Men with the Inhumans. So there's an element of that trolling in both of those minis that I think maybe turned X fans off to these series before they could even happen. And I think that's worth noting before we get into some more specifics about this story.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It definitely played to some of the fears that X fans had. Well, whether those fears were justified or conspiracy theories brought on by the fact that X fans always feel persecuted is an entire different thing. But no, they were definitely playing into some of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, it was a rough couple of years there to be an X-Men fan. I feel like from just before Secret Wars up through about, the start of Gold and Blue. So this is kind of like also the capstone of that era. In some ways, I felt like there were certain things that were done in this story that were trying to be mea culpas to the X fans and kind of saying, hey, yeah, we know some of the stuff hasn't been great, but hey, we're going to give you this story and try to throw in some cool moments, and it's going to open up the next phase of the story with the whole back to basics approach with Gold and Blue.
Well, we've already been talking about the story for about 8 minutes now. So should we get into the big until in the part that kind of drives this entire story off a cliff and into a burning pit?
Oh, you mean the villainization of one of my favorite characters?
Well, before we get into the Emma Frost heel turn, which is a huge punch in the gut at the end of this. And really, it's, if you go through the whole series, it's there. But all right, before we get to that, I just want to note that the entire conflict here does get muted a bit by the fact that in the 6th issue of this, there is a pair of panels where Medusa basically admits, after she's got some more information about what the Terrigen Cloud has been doing to the mutants, that she is more than willing to go along with the X-Men's plan. If everybody in this situation had just taken 2 seconds to talk to each other, there would be no battle. And so it takes the air out of the tires a little bit, that we have this supposedly huge crossover battle event that, I don't know, the stakes feel reduced a little bit. And then on top of that, I know, Zach, you probably just want to go on a rant about Emma. So let's get into
Can I say
Emma.
one thing quickly about your point there, Adam?
Please
yeah,
do.
I agree. And actually, I took some notes while I was rereading this comic and the others that we're going to discuss today. But one of the notes I wrote down was literally, but why couldn't they talk this out? Probably would force the Inhumans to admit their beliefs are more important than mutant lives, except for Medusa.
Yeah, and I think we dug into this a bit when we talked about that first Extraordinary X-Men crossover with this. We jumped into the fact that the entire conflict feels ridiculous because this is unlike, say, a Civil War II, or not Civil War II. Civil War II is bad. Unlike a Civil War where you can agree and understand with both sides. There's an obvious good guy and bad guy in this story, to the point where the young and, less indoctrinated, less conservative Inhumans essentially look around and say, guys, I think we're the baddies. I think we're wrong here.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous because obviously Medusa knew about the situation. Obviously, Medusa was aware that it was killing people, but it only gets to the point of, it's going to kill literally everyone and there's nothing we can do about it. Does she decide to take action? And that's a real step too far. That's real late in the situation.
Yeah. And then it happens immediately before we get to Emma using Sentinels. And
gosh, Emma, girl, baby girl, come on. What are you? Can I do my rant first?
Please do.
Go for it. Rant away.
Because I feel like we're gonna get 3 versions of the same rant, but I think that's appropriate here. I love Jeff Lemire. I've said it before. Jeff Lemire is probably my favorite working writer in comics, and I really do enjoy Charles Soule. I think he's an excellent writer, but the way that they take Emma doesn't track. I am fine with Emma being an antagonist. I'm fine with her being villainous. That follows a pretty clear path of what she's done in the past, what she has done even as a hero on the X-Men. She is allowed to do things that the other X-Men would find distasteful. That's not my issue here. My issue here is that in a series of panels, they turn Emma Frost into a mass murdering genocide girl who is using the very weapons that she has been tormented with and her entire mutant life. And I cannot for the life of me wrap my mind around that. It's not earned. If you want to make Emma a villain, if you want to make Emma a megalomaniac, fine, do that. You own the property, Marvel. But you've got to do enough to build the story around it. And it's hard for me to grok that the Emma in Death of X and the Emma in the first 6 issues of this book is the same Emma that is going to go around and say, I'm going to murder all of you. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't track. Someone else please rant for a little bit. I need to drink.
I mean, I agree with everything you've said there, Zach. I think you laid out the points very, very well. And yeah, it's just a shame how it was handled, especially because there's that scene where I think it's Rogue turns to Emma and says, "Hey, we destroyed all the Terrigen Mists, so we don't have to fight anymore." And then Emma's like, "Nah, we still got to kill them." And that just felt, I don't know, it felt wrong because I've always seen Emma Frost as a very practical person. She's someone who doesn't take needless risks, and it just seemed sort of over the top for her. I don't know. It left a really bad taste in my mouth. And another thing I didn't like was the really stupid pseudo Cyclops costume they gave her at the end.
Oh,
That
that's
costume,
terrible too.
that costume is so bad that it only ever appeared once outside of that panel. It appeared in a modified version on the cover of Secret Empire United #1 or Uprising, whatever one was the new Tian one. But they even modified it and took off the dumb helmet. And then by the time that cover made it to the stands, it was only ever solicited with Emma on it. They changed it to the Bachelor Magic and said, we're gonna edit this and we're gonna forget this costume ever happened. Love you, Lionel Francis Yu.
Well,
But between this and your Revolutions era 2000s X-Men costumes, maybe don't be a costume designer.
yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that this all just feels completely out of character for Emma. She's known for being incredibly intelligent and calculating, and the way that they're positioning her here is as if she's like, Silver Age X-Men villain, and it just doesn't track. It doesn't make sense. It's not believable, and I feel like the character has been in flux ever since this mini came out, and I'm really hoping that they figure it out, because I am disappointed that it got further disrupted by Secret Empire. And I know Bunn is going to be bringing her in to wrap up X-Men Blue, and I hope that does a little bit of course correction here, because Emma deserves better. This just does not make sense.
Yeah, and I think Bunn was just on the show a couple episodes back, but even before that, I would have to say that the way he's been handling Emma in the last couple of arcs, and including this this Magneto versus Emma X-Men Blue arc, I've really enjoyed seeing that. Like that's a villainous Emma I can get behind. So
yeah, and to be clear, like I'm cool with her being a villain. That's fine. But if she's going to be a villain, she still has to be the same character. Yes. And, frankly, it's just not believable that she would do some of the things that she's doing here for whatever the motivation is that they claim that she does it. So, all right, I think that's probably a good opportunity for us to get into ranking here. So, our IVX tie-in that we have on our list is Extraordinary X-Men 17, which is at number 70.
Wow, we put that way higher than I remember.
Well, because that IVX tie-in is a really good standalone story about Storm comforting a dying girl in the camp in Limbo at the refugee camp. So that's a pretty good standalone story that I think some of the tie-ins in IVX are probably better than IVX is.
Yeah, Uncanny has that whole thing with Phantom X becoming the world that never went anywhere.
No, that was fun. All right, so where do we want to put this on the list?
What I would say, and I think, Brett, you brought this up earlier, the first two issues, issue 0 and issue 1, are fabulous. They are some of the best X-Men stuff that had happened in that era. Those two issues are a fist-pumping, like, yes, I care about these characters. I care about their journey. I buy into this. You get excited by that. Then there's like, let's call it 4 issues of there's 4 issues of Act 2 that range from fine to blah, but nothing really happens. It's the X-Men fight the Inhumans, and then they set up for the big fight at the end. And then issue 6 is one of my least favorite X-Men comics of all time. So I am mixed. I think this is worse than number 70, which is Extraordinary X-Men 17.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
I'm looking down to some stuff. Brett, have you read Deadly Genesis?
Yeah, I have read Deadly Genesis, the one by Ed Brubaker with the introduction of Vulcan.
Yeah, with the third Summers brother,
Yep.
who's a space jerk. How
Space
do
Superman.
you feel about this compared to Deadly Genesis?
Ooh, good question.
Which is a controversial topic on this particular podcast.
Yeah.
One of us likes it a lot less.
So it's funny. I actually kind of liked Deadly Genesis, and maybe that's just because Brubaker is one of my favorite writers in comics, just in general. But I think almost certainly Deadly Genesis is better than IVX. I mean, it's a well put together story. It has a pretty good progression. Yeah, there's some random nonsense that's thrown in, but I think it's a story that fundamentally respects what the X-Men are.
Okay. I can buy that.
All right. I think Deadly Genesis probably edges out too. But I like where you're looking on the list, Zach. It has a strong start. It has a terrible, terrible finish. I can see this going below even No More Humans.
Oh yeah, this is below No More. You know what? Looking down this list, I think this is probably worse than the New Mutants, Fall of the Mutants stuff. Like, I don't like Bird Boy.
Ooh,
I don't.
yeah, Death of Doug. I would say it's better than Poptopia, though. Would you agree? I mean, I feel like the Emma character assassination is one thing, but like I don't know, that story was just like completely a non-entity for me.
Why did we put Poptopia above Heroes for Hope? That seems like a mistake on our part.
I don't know. There's probably, yeah. Well, we're gonna get into.
I'm sure we had a reason.
Yeah.
I'm sure we had a reason. Brett, do you have any opinions on either the New Mutants, Fall of the Mutant stuff or Poptopia?
I don't think I've ever actually read either one.
Okay.
You're not missing much.
All right. So, what do you think about this being our new 113, Zach? That work for you?
I think there's going to be some people who are surprised that it is not in that bottom 5 area. But here's the thing, guys. Here's the honest truth. First 2 issues are really good. The art's really good throughout.
Mm-hmm.
The last issue is a dumpster fire, and if we were only ranking the last issue, I would have a lot. That would be right near the Draco and God Loves Man Kills 2 and all that stuff. But
All right.
I think because of that, it can be our new number 113.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that's a good place for it right now on the list. So we're looking when we do episodes, we always are looking for things that are in similar veins. So we looked for another story that had both X-Men and Inhumans in it. And our next natural progression was to go to X Factor Endgame, which I'm very fond of. I really like this story quite a bit because I remember buying it when it came out. And I don't know if it's aged that well, but I sure as heck enjoy it.
Yeah, this is X Factor 65, 66, and 67, co-written by Jim Lee, Will Spartacio, and Chris Claremont, which is quite a team. Portacio does the pencils, Art Thieber does the inks, and Glennis Oliver does the colors. So, like, that's a stacked team right there.
Just a quick correction: we do go to issue 68 in this storyline because that's the important one.
We go to 68 on the.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
That's the important
the Marvel
one.
Wikia lied to me. Like,
Ooh.
I've read all this, I agree. But the Marvel Wikia was like, oh, it only goes up to 67. So those are only all of the tabs I opened. You ain't wrong.
Oh no, you needed 68 for this one. I had never read this story before, but I feel like if I just read 67, I would have had to have read 68 to know how everything finished.
Yeah, you've got to. It's a huge moment for X-Men in general. Now, Brett, you had not read this story before. What's your take? What's your first thoughts? Let's pass it over to you.
Sure. So I liked this story overall. There was a little bit of overwriting in a few places, but I mean, I've read enough Claremont to be, somewhat used to that. But there were some kind of small things about it that I really liked that I might as well lay out here. One thing I really liked about it was there was an anti-team set up to fight against X Factor, and I love.
Are we talking about the Dark Riders here?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the Dark Riders?
I love when there are stories where there's like a team and you have like 5 people. You know, there's like the gunslinger, the swordsman, you know, the brawler, etc. And then they have an enemy team that they fight that's kind of like dark reflections of them, or is people who have different powers that kind of counter theirs. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Hey, Adam, since you love this story so much, I do have to ask you.
Yeah.
Can you name the Dark Riders? Like,
oh, geez. Okay, I'm not looking at the page.
From
okay,
memory,
hold on.
get the Dark Riders.
Okay, Gauntlet.
Yes.
Foxbat.
Yes.
Tusk.
Tusk, my boy.
Mainframe.
Mainframe is later. Mainframe isn't here yet. Wait, is Mainframe?
Oh,
I don't. Mainframe sounds like he could be a Dark Rider, but I don't know if that's
or is
actually
it
one.
Hardwire?
Hard drive. There's hard drive.
Hard drive. That's it. That's the one. Hard drive. That's the little computer system that hacks into ship. Oh, geez, who am I forgetting? There's the psychic. Who's the psychic? I can't think of the psychic.
There's Synapse, and there is Barrage.
That's it. Yeah,
Barrage is kind of like their leader boy. He's the gun hands.
Yes.
Not the best gun handing having person that a Chris Claremont ever created. Because there is a guy when he talks about the Neo whose power is just having gun hands, and it's great.
Hey.
Now, Brett, what else did you like beyond the Dark Riders, who are kind of delightful and kind of dumb? They're the right '90s mix of delightful and dumb.
Yeah, gotta love some of those '90s characters. Yeah, another thing I liked about it was Cyclops was just really inspiring and was a Cyclops Prime. You know, it was everything you wanted from Cyclops. He had the good leadership qualities. He gave a rousing speech. He had a lot of, badass moments and saved everybody and really gave of himself to succeed. So that was something I really enjoyed. Something else that I liked about this story, given that I've never read a single X Factor comic before this, but it's something I definitely need to change, was that there was a decent amount of exposition, but given that I'm jumping in after 65 plus issues of story, it was actually kind of welcome. I felt like, oh, okay, I can sort of figure out what's going on. I don't really need to go back and read issues, 1 through 64 to really have a good understanding. I'm like, yeah, I know who this person is. I know who that person is. Oh, okay, this is why this guy is here.
Yeah, I think they do a great job setting up this story, because this does work as a good, 4 or 5 issue block. Part of that, I think, has to come from the fact that this is a pretty new team of writers. I mean, Simonson had just left the book on the last arc, and while Portacio was drawing in that and helping out with some of the storytelling, Claremont has to get a grasp on these characters that he hasn't written for 8 years or something like that. So there's a while to it. This story is, for people who don't recognize it just by reputation, this is the story where the Dark Riders, led by their Lord and Master Apocalypse, steal Nathan Christopher Charles Dayspring and Scotty Sun Summers. He doesn't have all those titles yet, but we're getting there. We're getting so close.
We're getting close.
He's just Nathan Christopher Charles Summers right now. He'll get the Ascani Sun by the end of this, and then Dayspring a little bit later. But Cable gets sent into the future because he gets infected by Apocalypse with a techno-organic virus, and the X-Men and the Inhumans go to come and save him, but they're too late, and Scott has to make just the hardest choice he's made since he had to leave his wife and son for this outcome, I guess.
Yeah, and this is also kind of the culmination of what started with Fall of the Mutants, when we had Apocalypse and the Horsemen attack New York City and turn Warren into Archangel, because at least superficially in this story, and of course he's going to come back, but it looks like Scott has completely decimated Apocalypse by the time this story is over.
Yeah, that's the thing Portacio does best in this.
Oh, yeah.
Because he kills the heck out of Apocalypse, and it looks very nice.
Well, I think I've talked on the show before about liking Whilce Portacio's art. I always have. I think this arc is some of my favorite stuff that he's ever done. especially the first and the last issues of this arc, because there's a little bit of stuff in the middle that feels like filler. Like, did we defeat the Dark Riders? Now we got to defeat them again. Let's get the Inhumans involved because we're on the the dark side of the moon.
Blue area.
Blue area. Excuse me.
Blue area. That's Dark Side is a Pink Floyd album, Adam.
I'm
you should know that. It's very popular.
My apologies. So I just remember this particular arc being such a big deal when it came out. It felt so major that Cyclops was giving away Nathan. And, we were really getting telegraphed very hard that this was going to be Cable. We knew from New Mutants that I think it was revealed in New Mutants, or maybe it was by the time X-Force comes out, that his name was Nathan. And on the last page where we have the Watcher, there is a panel that features Cable in one of these little shards of glass. And I think, readers were starting to put those pieces together and going, wow, this is kind of cool what's going on here. And it wouldn't be confirmed until we get to Executioner's Song, but really some cool stuff happening.
Yeah, it's a fun way to do this. There's a lot of exciting things happening here. I would agree that kind of that middle section gets boring. Like, I'm not sure they needed to bring in the Inhumans on this one because they don't do much. Apocalypse has just enslaved half the Inhumans or something like that. And also half of the Dark Riders or the Riders of the Storm, depending on what issue you're reading them in, are Inhumans. So it has some ups, it has some downs, but I really do enjoy Apocalypse in this. I think, Brett, you were absolutely right. Scott is written so well in this. This is a very good Cyclops story, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, it gives Claremont an opportunity to kind of come back to these characters, and he does get to do his final X-Men 1, 2, 3 story, but this is similar, and he's still in an awkward spot because you can tell that the story is still being guided by the artwork and behind the scenes by Wilson Jim, who are plotting this thing out in anticipation of X-Men 1, 2, and 3. Trying to get these guys to hit the reset button a little bit, but the way this wraps up is tremendous. I think it's fantastic.
It's a cool story. I'm glad that you guys picked it out for this episode, so I would have a reason to go out and read it, because I don't know if I would have found it otherwise.
Here's the thing no one tells you about X Factor. X Factor is actually pretty good for a really long time.
Yeah, and yeah, especially the Simonson run is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great, and then it hits about issue 100, and then it gets real bad for a while. Like, I don't know if anyone read the Jeff Matsuda and who was the Howard Mackey X Factor.
Not good.
Oh, it's a struggle. But yeah, this is interesting, fun story. Where are we thinking on the list? Because here's what I think. I think Apocalypse in this might be the best Apocalypse has ever done.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think this is the best Apocalypse story, because I don't think this is as good as that X Factor Fall of the Mutants.
Well, we've got X Factor Fall of the Mutants at 13.
Yeah, we got that real high.
Yeah, I don't think we're that high. However, I think we could be in the top 25 here, depending on your taste there, Zach. I just think that this is a really pivotal X moment. This idea of sending Nathan Christopher into the future is, it's staggering. And it's something that, I think other comics maybe like aspire to have, like this level of complexity to them that then doesn't get solved for years down the line in between books. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of this.
So here's what we've got around what you had said. Number 25 is Uncanny Avengers Avenge the Earth.
Oh, that's a great arc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, friggin' right?
Yeah, we love that one.
It's so good. It's got a weird team. It's got some weird time travel stuff. It's got a very good explosion.
It's got Magneto. What else do you want?
Oddly comparable. It does have Mr. Lyncher doing some stuff. Right under that, we have Astonishing X-Men Dangerous. And right under that, we have what I think is an oddly comparable story to what you're saying in Storm and Ileana Magic, which is a pivotal X-Men story, a good X-Men story, but possibly not like one of the best X-Men stories.
Yeah, I think just looking at the range here, I think if I was just going to slot it in all by myself, I would put it right below Inferno New Mutants, which is another like hugely pivotal end to a character arc. Because I do think that this is better than X Club.
I don't.
Which,
I don't.
which I have a lot of affinity for. But I'm willing to get talked down because I'm also of the mind that Avenge the Earth is like one of my favorite things ever. So. What do you think about maybe slotting it in between Avenge the Earth and Dangerous?
Brett, I'm gonna let you weigh in on this because I've gotta compose myself because this feels like a very pivotal conversation.
What? Wait, which arc is Dangerous?
Dangerous is the second arc of Astonishing X-Men where Danger appears.
Oh, that's a good arc too. I mean, all of Astonishing is so good. Oh gosh. I mean, I don't know that this story is quite that good, but it's pretty up there.
I think I agree for the reasons I previously stated. Also, Adam, you're nuts if you think this is better than X Club.
I like this. I love X Club, but I do like this better. But I think a lot of this is being colored by my nostalgia. So
It's got to.
Where do you want to put it?
If I had my druthers, I would put it either right above or right below Storm and Ileana Magic because I think this is probably better than the Jeff Johns Morlock series.
Mm-hmm.
But I am really struggling to put it above Astonishing X-Men Dangerous, which frankly, Astonishing X-Men is a touchstone X-Men series for me, just like this
Sure.
is for you. So I've got that same nostalgia kind of weighing against it.
I want to plug it above Magic.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
You cool with that?
I am absolutely cool as a cucumber about that.
All right.
Magic is good.
X Factor Endgame.
X Factor Endgame is also good. It's our new number 27 on this list.
Nice showing.
And we've got one more story.
Yes, sir.
This story does not have any Inhumans in it, as far as I know.
No, but it does involve a mutant-killing virus that lasted for, when I counted, 8 solid years of continuity. Holy cow.
Well, not only that, this, like IVX, and Brett, I believe you were bringing this up a bit earlier, is kind of clearing the table, kind of getting everything ready for the next big thing. This is Uncanny X-Men 390. It is called The Cure. And the big thing here is the legacy virus goes away, but at the cost of Colossus's life, which, by the way, that science don't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. But what happens, I think, in 2 issues from here, is that real bad, what's it called? Eve of Destruction. But right after that is New X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men stuff that follows it. So this is getting ready for the Grant Morrison era. And they said, let's get rid of the legacy virus. That's been sitting around for too long. Just like getting rid of Mpox, getting everything ready for, the Resurrection era. So this is, that's the summary. There's a virus. Colossus stabs himself in the chest with a needle and he dies, but all the mutants are cured of the legacy virus. Brett, had you read this before?
I had never read this, and thus, like the previous story, I liked that some of the opening narrative gave me lots of context about what was going on.
Yeah, here's the thing. Right before this issue was the Chris Claremont second era of X-Men, and that I just read like 2 weeks ago. That's a bad situation. So Scott Lobdell jumped on here with Salvador LaRocca, who I like Salvador LaRocca. I like a lot of Scott Lobdell's writing.
Art's good.
They come in, do a one shot that does some interesting things. Definitely some weird stuff. It does have the X-Men like playing basketball or something, which I know they did in the 90s, but it's still so hard for me to imagine them doing.
Yeah, basketball in the 90s versus baseball everywhere else. They do play some baseball in the 90s too.
Classic X-Men, always playing sports together.
Yeah, we get a little hijinks there, and Professor X even comes out in his hover chair and plays a little bit, which I think is fantastic. The part that just does not make sense, and I don't think that it ever really made sense, is the explanation of the spread of the legacy virus. They even name drop AIDS in here, which really, we're not talking about this correctly if we're not also talking about HIV. They talk about the difference between the legacy virus and AIDS, and then how it's all just magically going to go away. And it doesn't make any sense. Like you said, Zach, his basic idea is that it became airborne because someone died. So to get the cure to spread magically to all of mutant kind, someone has to inject themselves with the cure and die. What kind of, tortured logic really makes this somehow become realistic? I just don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. And when it happens, it's still, again, very confusing. Like, the guys are playing basketball. Colossus injects himself with this stuff, and then I guess like the roof explodes or something. And Gambit's like, look, it's Colossus's power energy signature. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, like last time I checked, Colossus turns metal. He doesn't like shoot fireballs or have an energy signature that like Gambit's going to be able to eyeball from 30 feet away on a basketball court. So very, very strange. But you're nailing it there, Zach. Like, this is clearly just an issue to clear the table and get ready for the next new thing that X-Men's got going on. But it doesn't do any service to whatever the writers had intended the legacy virus to take care of. At least with Mpox, we only got it for a very short period of time, and the IVX story wraps that up very neatly with a giant vacuum cleaner. This took 8 solid years of sort of teasing around the idea that this was a metaphor for AIDS, and then it's wiped away without any real significance. I don't know. It doesn't feel earned in any respect.
Yeah, it was a decent amount of hand wavy mumbo jumbo.
Now, to its credit, I do think that the very last Colossus death page echoing his words in Giant Size X-Men, I think that works.
Oh, I liked that a lot. I just hated that they had to have the editor's note that it was from Giant Size. I was like, come on.
That's so dumb.
Trust the fans. Trust the fans. Like, we know what that is.
I understand that, like, we weren't living in the reprint era of comics. But here's the situation there. Best case scenario, someone thinks Scott Lobdell's a genius.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you lose? What do you lose?
It's literally the scary movie thing of, see, look, we're referencing this thing over here. Don't you get it? I love editor's notes. I think that there is a lack of editor's notes in comics, and someone needs to resolve that.
Agreed.
Oh, for sure.
That said, this is a bad editor's note.
Yeah. Just a quick aside, I just read Chip Zdarsky's Spider-Man annual that just came out, and there's a lot of editor's notes. I think he's just writing them, but they're really funny.
Oh, yeah. Chipper. He has been doing some excellent editor's notes in like all of his work.
Yeah.
He loves them, and I love him for it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we could see the value of a Wolverine slam dunk. I think we all agree that this hand wavy cure doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So where would it go on the list?
Let's see. If I'm going to throw out an idea, I think this is better than IVX.
Mm-hmm.
But looking up this list, I don't know how much better it is. Like, IVX is at 114 right now.
Yeah.
This isn't as good as the very first issue of X-Men at 96.
No, it definitely isn't.
It's not as good as the House Party issue of X-Men Evolution at 98. I'll say that.
I think the Quanon stuff is more fun. I I think it's strangely comparable with like the new X-Men Academy X stuff. Like it's not that it's technically improficient. It feels strangely empty when it shouldn't, you know? Like I feel like this should have more weight to it. So I mm, I don't know. I'm looking around 100, which is Storm Volume 4, number 3,
Oh, is that the
which is
Life Death 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Or I guess it had a different title, but that's basically
It
what
did,
was.
but who cares what it was?
Yeah, we did a show
actually
about
supposed
Life,
to be
Death
called.
1 and 2, and we threw that one on as Life, Death 3.
I think I remember that episode.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Zach? Is that like maybe or do you think it goes lower? I mean,
I think Life Death 3 is better than this. I'm kind of looking at I think Wolverine fighting poachers is better than this that we talked about
Okay.
last episode.
okay.
Uh,
I don't know if I would put it below Expose though.
that's the trick because I think it's
Yeah.
right there.
Okay.
Uncanny or Extreme X-Men Expose. I got to get that triple X up in here. But Extreme X-Men Expose is it's worse. Even if it's got our favorite NPR team, it's worse. So I think that drops this in as our new 104 on this list
Great.
of Uncanny X-Men 390. Yeah, the Death of Colossus, the Cure, the everything.
Nice.
And that's it. That is 3 stories all about a lot of stuff. And whoa, we said some things. I am very out of beer at this point, which is fair. We've been recording this episode for like 50 minutes by now. So, I mean, come on, guys. But it was good. Brett, it was great having you. Now, would you like to tell people where they can find you online and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. That would be great. So it was mentioned earlier that I am the co-host of the Renegades Talking Valiant podcast. If you are interested in listening to that, you can either look it up on your favorite podcasting platform, be that iTunes, Stitcher, etc., or you can go to talkingcomicbooks.com, click on their little podcast button, and you can go listen to us. We have done 93 episodes. So there's plenty of stuff for you to listen to if you're interested. And yeah, usually what we do is we talk about Valiant Comics news and the latest Valiant comics, including great series like Bloodshot Salvation, which is written by Jeff Lemire, who we talked about on this episode. So yeah, if you want to check it out, please do. And yeah, I was glad to be on the show today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for being here. Now, if you liked this, what's this thing called? This podcast, this episode, and you want an entire episode crafted around one of your thoughts, you can mosey on over to patreon.com/XavierFiles. And if you pitch in at the $2 a month or higher level, we'll just bespoke design this beautiful episode around one of your stories. And if you do that, you can make us suffer like Brett did. So that's nice. That's nice. I like that people are using their money.
Hey, look at it this way. At least you got IVX out of the way. You never have to do it ever again.
You say that, but do you know how many tie-ins there were? We're gonna have to talk about that time that Iceman and Romeo made out during IVX, and it was just kind of like weird timing. We're gonna have to talk about. I forget some of the other tie-ins. Frankly, I do. I don't remember. There was a lot. Forge and Wolverine went on a dune buggy race, and
What?
oh yeah, did you not know about that?
I definitely didn't read that tie-in.
Yeah, it was super good. Andrea Sorrentino did some of the art on that one, if I recall right. It looked great.
Oh, no kidding. Andrea Sorrentino is amazing.
Yeah. It was real good. They flashed over to the Old Man Logan world. A lot of fun.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I actually might have to track that down.
Yeah, it's on that app. I forget exactly where. I think it's number 18. That sounds right.
Of which series? Extraordinary?
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a fun one. now I have lost my train of thought. Anyway, yeah, you can do the Patreon thing. It's pretty cool. Or leave a review if you want. Like, if you're already listening to this somehow, go over to the review section and be like, hey, this is a cool podcast. Or, hey, that one host is getting distracted way too much. Maybe he should stop that crap. Whatever you feel the need to do, just go on and do that. And then if you want to follow the show, you can go over to XavierFiles.com. That's where I have all the latest in X-Men news and character write-ups and podcast episodes and things like that. So maybe go check that out. And finally, you can follow me on Twitter at XavierFiles. Adam, where can people find you online?
All right, guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. If you'd like a copy of The Search for Bish and Jubes, not too late to head over to adamrec.bigcartel.com for $1. I'll print it and mail it to you if you live within the United States. If you don't, just DM me. We could probably figure something out. And I'm starting work behind the scenes on the 4th issue. So we'll see how that turns out.
I'm very excited because Bish and Jubes.
Cool.
It feels, I have a lot of feelings about that
Oh,
story.
one thing I forgot.
So that's good.
I forgot to mention. You can also, if you're interested, check out my website /blog, which is brettcomics.com. Very easy to remember, and that's Brett with 2 T's.
And we
Cool.
will toss that in the episode notes, along with a link to the Talking Valiant, the Renegades. Only the opposite way that those words go in that
Hey,
order.
it's
So-
all good. Our podcast has been called every variation of that.
Reneg talk about time go force. I forget what their
Oh, boy.
team is. Harbinger.
The
Nope,
Harbinger
that's a
team is the
different thing.
Renegades. That's where the name of the podcast came from.
See, look at that. I have so much Valiant on my OneDrive that I got from a Humble Bundle that I've never read, and it just has somehow seeped into my brain. So we got that covered. Anyway, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!